Hello everyone and welcome back to the coverage of the World Blitz Championship. We are in the final day of the championship and it is round 18. It's Magnus Carlsen versus a former world champion Vladimir Kramnik, and after his win against Danil Dubov, Carlsen drew against Nh6 Ke8 and now he faces Vladimir Kramnik, who retired from professional chess, but he came out of retirement to enjoy this short Blitz tournament. He didn't participate in the Rapid, but still there are only few people that can tackle him in Blitz, as he's doing extremely well in this tournament, facing Carlsen so late in the tournament. And also he's been practicing with Alpha Zero, with the DeepMind team, checking out all that no castling rule stuff. So who knows what dirty secrets he uncovered as of late. That being said, let's check out the game. Magnus with the white pieces again goes for his London system. We have knight to f6, knight f3 d5, and bishop to f4. The London system is on the board. We have c5 by Kramnik and now e3, and this is it's a great example because the London system usually doesn't really pose any problems for black if black is able to counter it properly, and who better to test it out than against Vladimir Kramnik. We have knight that's not a knight to c6, knight bd2 by Magnus, and c captures on d4, e captures on d4, and now queen to b6, attacking d4 and b2. So knight b3 covers both of those threats, preparing a4, a5, something Carlsen always goes for. Bishop to f5, and now bishop to e2. This is a new move in the position, so as of move 8 we have a completely new game. We have e6 by Kramnik, preparing to develop the dark square bishop. Magnus castles, and bishop to e7. We have a4, preparing to push the queen further with a5, a6 by Kramnik, and now a5. We have queen back to d8, a7 is possible, but with the bishop covering b8, it would be, you would have to wait to push b5 to get the queen away from there. So queen to d8 and knight to e5 now. An excellent square for the knight. We have rook to c8 by Kramnik and now c3, just strengthening the center. Castles by Kramnik and now rook to e1. We have knight to e4, also an excellent square for Kramnik's knight, and bishop to d3 now. If the knight moves, you can capture on f5 and double black spawns. So Kramnik goes knight captures on e5, bishop captures, and now bishop to g6. So the trade happens on g6 instead of on f5. Bishop back to f4. Magnus doesn't want to allow f6 and e5 to come with tempi on the bishop, so knight back to d6. Now Kramnik offers a trade of light square bishops. Magnus captures with bishop captures, pawn captures, and now this is one of those decisions that Magnus Carlsen can make in an instant, and well, for everyone else we would probably decide on what the best move here is. But Magnus goes for bishop captures on d6, something that, well, not a lot of people would play, as you give up your bishop and you go into this knight versus bishop game, where if you trade down into an endgame, most likely you will not be able to hold Vladimir Kramnik. But Carlsen does not intend to go for the endgame here. Here Carlsen plans to attack, and he starts with the g3. Point is, he wants to play h4, h5, open up the h file, play king g2, and bring the rook over to the open h file, and then use the queen to perhaps checkmate the black king. So let's see how that goes. We have b5 by Kramnik. Kramnik, of course, wants to play on the queen side. A captures on b6, queen captures, and now rook e2. So the knight can move, the b2 pawn is now protected. Rook to b8, challenging the knight, and now knight back to c1. The knight is now coming to d3, from where the knight will also control the b2 pawn. a5 by Kramnik. Kramnik wants to push a4 and a3, and if he can break up this structure here, then his position will be excellent. We have knight to d3 by Magnus, and queen to b5 now, preparing to further expand with a4, and now Carlsen starts with h4. We have rook f to c8, and now rook to d2. Now the queen can move, as the knight is also guarded by the rook. Rook to a8, now preparing to push the pawn to a4 and a3, and here h5 by Magnus. Kramnik doesn't want to allow h captures to weaken the pawn chain, so he captures on h5 himself. Queen captures on h5, and now g6. we have queen to h6 and now a4. Kramnik continues to play on the queen side, whereas Carlsen plays on the king side. We have king g2, and it's a really safe square for the king as the d5 pawn is on a light square, so Kramnik is unable to move it to use this diagonal for attack, and the dark square bishop will not be very useful here. So you cannot allow rook to h1 to come while your queen is on h6. This is just instant mate. So Kramnik kicks it away, bishop to f6, and now queen to f4. Now Magnus is preparing knight e5 to go after the f7 pawn. Bishop g7, but knight to e5 still. You cannot capture it. If you capture it, queen captures, then there's just no stopping rook h1 to h8. It's completely lost. So the dark square bishop is an essential part of Kramnik's defenses. So you have to guard the f7 pawn, either by rook a7 or queen to e8. Kramnik prefers queen to e8. He wants to keep the rook here as an option to push a3. We have rook to d3 by Magnus, now trying to get another attacker to the f7 pawn. With f6, Kramnik has to play something to push it away, and knight to g4 now with a double attack on the f6 pawn. Queen to f8, and now rook to f3. And here, Kramnik was already much lower on time than Magnus, and in a 3-minute blitz game, that is a lot to take into account. So a3 by Kramnik, there's no point in trying to defend the f6 pawn. Magnus just captures it, and now you cannot recapture. If you capture, it's winning for Magnus. Captures, 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 and now you can just capture on f6 with check. There's nothing to do here. You can just capture, captures, the threat is just captures on g6, and if you go back, that doesn't really do anything, just captures, queen g7, captures here, you win the rook, and that's just the game. So, first f5 by Kramnik, and now a beautiful move by Magnus, queen to g5, now not allowing captures because of captures. So king to f7, Kramnik tries to run away with the king now, but rook to h1. Magnus now abandons the defense of the a3 pawn because rook to h7 is just too great. Still, Kramnik captures, you have to play something. We have rook to h7, and here Kramnik captures the other pawn as well. So here, feel free to pause the video and try to find the winning move for Magnus while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, because every move wins here. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, if you found rook captures on c3, that's enough for a win. If you found queen to f6 check, that's enough for a win since the bishop is pinned. But Magnus played the quickest way to victory, knight to h6 check. You cannot capture as the bishop is pinned, so king to e8 was played, and now queen captures on g6 with check. Here, Kramnik played king to d8, but it was also in this position that he resigned, because, like we said, every move wins here. Just you can capture on c3, for example, rook captures. Now you pick up the bishop here. You can just win the queen. You can try and checkmate the black king right away. So everything wins here. But it's just amazing this moment where. Well, I forgot where the moment was, but after all the trades, I think it was around here. Let me just go back for a few seconds. Yeah, it was fairly early on in the game, this moment. So it's only move 18, how quickly Magnus decided to go for this captures, and how well he knows the London system. So London system isn't dangerous in itself. It's what you do with it that matters. So this is one such example where you can just use these pawns on light squares as a shield, play g3 to numb off the dark square bishop, play king g2, open up the h file. Really just a very instructive game. So yeah, once again, I do hope you enjoyed it. Carlsen still in sole lead after beating Vladimir Kramnik, who was trailing behind him. So we'll see what happens. I would like to thank Hugh Koitran, Gleb Kopchenkov, Joseph Matsiar, Hamid Mazuji, and Tasos Arampatsis for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the World Blitz Championship until it ends. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.